living fully alive in every way. You're listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol.
Can blended really be blessed? Hi there, I'm Dr. Carol, and you're listening to Relationship Prescriptions. I am part of a blended family. When I married my husband, Al, he had 2 sons. They were grown at the time we got married, but I personally experienced what it was like to enter a family that had already been built and to build a new family, creating new relationships, the good, the bad, and sometimes the challenging. My guest today, Ron Deal, is an expert. In fact, he is the leading national expert on blended families, especially from a Christian perspective. Ron Deal is a best-selling author, a licensed marriage and family therapist, a podcaster, a conference speaker. He conducts laugh and learn marriage and family seminars. I could just go on and on. And step-family education is his expertise. His most recent book, Building Love Together in Blended Families with Gary Chapman, is just one of the top resources that he makes available now working with family life. I had a conversation with Ron Deal a few weeks ago. You'll hear in this conversation that my audio is a little challenged. I was in a different setup, and it's not quite the quality that we like to bring, but I believe this is still incredibly valuable. You'll also hear us refer to a video connection. This was one of the resources that we brought for our online community, the Fully Alive group. I wanted to bring this conversation to our podcast family because of how common step families are, how big the challenges are, and how powerfully practical the help that Ron Deal brings is. We talk about do's and don'ts for the parent who is now a step parent. We talk about do's and don'ts for the biological parent, some very, very helpful things to know in building a blended family, and the input that God can bring. He is not surprised. He cares about family. You'll hear us talk about that in this conversation. This is one of the most helpful conversations that I believe we have ever brought to you. And maybe I'm a little biased because I know what it's like to be in a step family. If you are in a step family or love and care about someone who is, I know that you will find this helpful. Here is my conversation with Ron Deal. I am part of a blended family, a step family. That was God's blessing to me. And that area is where you have devoted so much of your time and energy and ministry. I just like to start by acknowledging that blended families can be hard. Step families can be hard. I think any of us who are thoughtful probably know that. But let's start by just unpacking perhaps a few of the characteristics of blended families that make it so. Why does it seem like they are harder?
Well, let's think for a minute about here we are in the middle of a pandemic still,
Yes.
having this conversation, right? And let me just invite your viewers to think about life before the pandemic and life since the pandemic. All we did was insert one little virus.
Yeah.
And wow, what a world of difference it has made. My wife is a teacher. She is at her public school today preparing for students to show up in a week. Parents all over the place right now are going, I don't know what to do. Keep them at home, send them homeschool. How do we think of all the ripples that one little virus has sent through our economy, our way of life, how we do, where we work. I'm at home, you're at home, right? This is our world. And it's just one little factor that has had a big impact. Blended families have some things that are unique about how they function and operate from day one, but they have big impact. And it often takes people by surprise. Yes, they're mindful of that. I know I'm not your mom or your dad as a step parent. I get that. And it's going to take us a while to figure out life. And we kind of walk into the pandemic going, oh, but I didn't realize there would be this, and then there would be that, and then this domino would affect that domino. And wow, now it feels like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not that bad. Blended families are not a virus. I want to be very clear about that. As you said, they can be an incredible blessing to many, many people. I've certainly seen that over and over and over again. But you do have to get past what we call the integration years, where you're doing all the work of figuring out how we do life. Here's another quick analogy. Just because you know how to drive a car does not mean you should get out on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean and take off.
I know how to move. I know how to take a vehicle somewhere, but this is different.
This is different. You understand steering, you understand navigation, you kind of have a sense of getting from point A to point B, but wow, is the ocean a different place? And wow, is the wind and sails and hello, I don't even understand how that works. That's very different. So you may be a parent and you've had children and you have a sense of what parenting is. One of the classic illustrations that I run into quite a bit is a little bit older parent who marries again in midlife or later in life. Their children are teens or late teens or early adults. They know parenting, right? And then they walk in and, oh, now I'm a step parent to some younger children. That's okay. I know how to do this. No, you just stepped on a sailboat. And it's a completely different vehicle with a completely different, energy behind it and navigation system. And there is so much more to the picture. You now have to figure out how to parent children who may or may not really want you to parent them. That's not even close to the same as you're my dad and I love you and I always want you in my life. That is the way parent-children relationships work. Step-parent, step-children relationships have to even figure out how we travel together before I can figure out how I parent you. So there's extra layers of complexity that can be navigated, can be understood, and you can manage it well if you do your homework.
That sounds like the children have a certain role to play in this. And I believe one of the myths or one of the fallacies is that when, parent A and parent B, okay, we fall in love and we get married, but there's kids involved. We think our love, our commitment is going to be the deciding factor in the quality of our lives, and the kids should just follow along. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case.
Right. That's not always the case. The children run the gamut in terms of their level of motivation to build a relationship with you that is close and intimate. Some children are wide open for a step parent, love the fact that you're in my life, love everything about you. I want you to be my mom, have that sort of posture. And then it runs all the way to the other extreme of, great, you married my dad. That's wonderful. I don't need you. I'm not against you, but I don't need you.
Right.
There's other people in the middle where I enjoy something about you, but oh man, in fact, I kind of enjoy it too much. I feel a little guilty. Like my mom's going to be upset if she knows how attracted to you I am and how much I enjoy spending time with you. So children have so many other things that they're working on, and they absolutely are a player in this process. Their opinion matters a lot. It's not just up to the level of interest or motivation in the adults. They have to, in fact, I think that's one of the challenges. Adults have to temper their drive to bond and create relationship with a child based on where the child is.
Yeah. I can also see a potential landmine there if, parent A says, I realize that my children, need me and I'm the parent and my spouse is not their parent, and they devote all their attention to their biological children, the marriage itself can be in trouble. A word, if you would, about the roles of the marriage relationship versus the parent-child relationship. That can be sticky.
Yeah, it can be. And essentially the, one of the common little triangles that forms is, as you mentioned, when the biological parent, who is, of course, emotionally connected to their children and caregiver, and, we've been together, we've been through hard together, something has happened in our life that's brought us to this point. And of course, they're your kids. So you have complete ownership of that. they're connected to their kids, but they're also now connected to a new spouse, the step parent to the children, and they feel caught in the middle of that. If the step parent and stepchildren could come together and they have a healthy relationship, the other side of the triangle, everything gets comfortable for the biological parent. But as long as there's any tension, the bio parent feels stuck in the middle a little bit. Like, who do I come to the rescue of? Who am I aligning with? And so here's the advice that we give people. You got to do both, and it's not either or, either your kids or your spouse. It is both your kids and your spouse. And in fact, in the beginning, kind of a little paradoxical, we tell parents, move toward your children even as you are moving toward your new spouse. Emotionally, they need your presence. They need to know they haven't lost you to this new marriage. They need to understand that they've still got some stability in their relationship with you. And at the very same time, your spouse and your marriage needs time and energy and some dedication on your part. And it's okay to carve those up. Now, here's the tricky part. Bio parents want to put everybody together. But no. It's actually okay and helpful. It reduces the tension and stress a little bit early on if the bio parent spends time one-on-one with their children, exclusive time with their kids, and then exclusive time with their spouse. Yes, there will be opportunities, dinners and meals and so on, where everybody's sitting at the table together or in the car traveling together. That's going to happen slowly but surely. Step parents, stepchildren will figure something out. It's when bio parents need you to get it figured out today. I'm going to cram you together whether you like each other or not. That's when things then unwind and go backwards. So there's this delicate balance, investing in your kids, investing in your spouse. Now, the one thing I haven't mentioned yet, we got to throw in here, is the step parent, while this is going on, has got to understand the importance of their spouse having that time with their children.
Yeah.
If the step parent is jealous of that time, if they are turning everything into a you're always with them and never with me moment, that jealousy actually makes your spouse align with their kids even more. It really hurts you. The grace here is giving permission for them to be together. That actually lightens the tension about your presence in the home.
Beautiful.
And helps stepchildren see you as somebody respectable, decent. Makes it easier for your spouse to then turn to their kids and go, all right, kids, you've had your time. I'm going to spend time with this person over here.
Yeah.
And so there's a delicate balance. Husband and wife really have to come, parent and step parent have to work together to help this move forward.
I believe I was blessed to understand at least enough of that when I married my husband, that there wasn't a lot of tension in that aspect of the family relationship. I really had the best of all possible worlds. My husband's two boys were grown when we got married, and they were happy that my husband and I were getting married. I do remember one of the early things I dealt with in my own heart was at family gatherings, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, or whatever. It became clear very quickly to me that my husband and his boys had shared decades already. In my case, they had shared many years together and had many memories that I had not been a part of. And I had a choice at that point to feel sorry for myself and left out, or I could choose to be curious, ask questions, enjoy a window into these other people's lives that I wouldn't have had otherwise. That was a choice I had to make internally. Yeah. And I think making the choice to be curious and enter and enjoy rather than feeling left out, that I believe made a big difference in our relationship. Does that resonate?
It does. And you handled that very, very well. The one thing I would add is I don't think you can, in that situation, we in fact, we use the term insiders and outsiders when talking about step-family relationships. And you were an outsider to their past, their history, the traditions, the stories, the meaning that's wrapped into those stories, the emotional bond that's connected in all those stories. You're an outsider to that.
Yep.
And I don't think, here's the thing, I don't think we can prevent step parents from feeling like an outsider. Mm-hmm. If you're watching right now and you're going, how do I get rid of that? I don't know. I think that's a natural thing. You care about their story and you would love to be embedded in it, but you're not.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can change that. The question is, what do you do with feeling like an outsider? And you illustrate well. You have a choice. You can be jealous. You can be resentful. You can say, I don't want to hear that stuff. Don't tell me those stories. And certainly don't tell me about the kid's mother.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. She feels like a threat to me somehow, whether she's alive or deceased. As soon as you do that, guess what? They all look at you like, okay, we're not sure we want to help you become an insider. Mm-hmm. We don't trust you. The gift of, yes, that's wonderful. Let me hear those stories. Celebrating their past, even though you're not a part of it, shows you to be somebody worthy of their respect and honor. And the irony is it helps you become an insider. You do have a choice.
Thanks for that. And yes, I did feel like an outsider for years. I also will always remember the time about 7 years into my marriage, about 7 years into after my husband and I had gotten together and then got married. And one of my stepdaughters-in-law, so there was like 2 orders of magnitude there. She and my stepson had some questions about their marriage, their relationship. And they knew based on my work that I had some insight into what they were faced with. And it was an amazing honor when they approached me asking for my input on what they were dealing with. That would have never happened if I had tried to force myself or nursed my outsiderness. I had to earn that right.
Yeah. And what's so cool about that is that another outsider, your daughter-in-law, is the one who said, hey, I really value your opinion. Let's ask Carol. And that, who knows what kind of influence that had on your stepson and his ability to see you in a different way and to experience you in a different way. And that's the way, life often goes for step families. Here's the message, if you stay with it, if you don't quit, if you see it out, it is a long-term journey and the benefits tend to come later on, not so much in the beginning. And I think that's important because when you're feeling discouraged or some people feeling defeated, like they don't see how any of this is going to work out. Staying with it, managing the process, doing what you can to control who you are in the moment tends to have payoffs big time for people in blended families. You just have to be dedicated to the long-term journey.
That sounds like such wisdom. I know it's been that case for me. Let's talk about younger kids versus older kids. I think probably many people understand that younger kids, especially if they're shuffling between dad's house and mom's house and, there's steps, everything, everywhere, understand that can feel disruptive. But talk for a minute, if you would, about older kids, either older teenage or even maybe out of the house. And can that still be a challenge?
Absolutely. I'm convinced that it's one of the most overlooked aspects of what we call later life blended families. Adult children, it doesn't matter how old they are, have just as many emotional adjustments to make, life issues to transition to adapt to because of a parent's marriage, as do younger age children. It just gets played out in a little bit different way. The step parent is not trying to tell a 35-year-old stepchild, pick up your socks. That's not part of their relationship, but they are trying to figure out whose house they're going to be at for the birthday party and who's really invited and what role you will play as a step parent in this grandchild's birthday celebration. That when you're new on the scene and we've got tradition and it doesn't include you, it is playing a role in the family identity. And really, ultimately, that is what's similar. It doesn't matter how old the children are. When a blended family is created, they're ultimately trying to figure out a new family identity. And some people are really motivated towards working that out, the adults, generally speaking. And as we said earlier, the children run the gamut in terms of how motivated they are to figure this out. And some people are highly motivated, and some people could just take it or leave it. Your dad's new wife. Love it. Take care of my father. I appreciate that. You're a nice person. We enjoy Sunday lunch together every once in a while, but I don't need you in my life. I'm not going to call you when I have questions about, whatever. I just don't see you in that role in my heart. So that's when low motivation meets the high motivation of the step parent and often the biological parent who wishes their children would embrace the new spouse. Of course they do. That's why you married this person, because you were trying to bring them into the family. Well, other people may not want them in that way to be part of the family. You really have to respect the wishes of another person. Carol, it's interesting to me. We do this in every other aspect of our lives. Why would we not do it also here? What do I mean by that? If you have a new coworker, do you go hang out at their desk 24/7? Well, now these days you can't hang out at anybody's desk, right? But you know what I'm talking. Do you go and just smother them all the time like you're the greatest thing and you're just so glad they're, well, that's a little weird. They probably don't want you around and you wouldn't do that, right? If you have a new neighbor and you're trying to make a new friendship with a neighbor living close to you, do you barge into their house unannounced and start eating food out of their refrigerator? I don't think so, right? We all know we have to meet people where they are. We respect their boundaries. Well, looks like they don't need a new friend, so I guess I'm not making a new friend. That's the truth. The same dynamic is at play in blended families. You have to pace your connection with where the other person is and what they want from you. When you figure that out and you start trying to pace with them, more often than not, you find a starting point for your relationship. It'll grow, it'll change. I don't know how long it'll take, but you find the starting point and then go from there.
Yeah. That's a great picture and it sounds very wise and speaks to what could be some things to do wrong or things to do right in for the adults in the room, that the parents to build this family. We've talked about several things already, but I'd like to get really explicit. If we can talk about a few things not to do, and then maybe a few things to do. I know you've written so much about this, you teach and talk about it all the time, but maybe just a few key don'ts and a few key do's.
Well, we've already mentioned let's do some step parent don'ts. Don't force yourself on the children. You can't demand love. You can't expect them to have the same level of motivation that you have. You have to pace with them and meet them where they are and go from there. You also can't try to replace their biological parent. If you're a stepmom, for you to come in on the scene, and let me just paint two scenarios. Biological mom may be deceased. Biological mom may be alive. There was a divorce. She lives somewhere else. For you to come in with the attitude of, I'm filling the gap in your life. I'm your new mom in this house. Wow. I mean, more often than not, that is met with a huge amount of resistance from children who bow their backs and go, oh, no, you're not going to do that. You can't, jump into that place. Neither can you disrespect the biological parent. When you become a fan of if you're the stepmom, becoming a fan of their mother in whatever ways you can with authenticity will be more endearing to your stepchildren than anything if you make her an enemy. All of a sudden, they're supporting her and defending her against you, and you can't be trusted. That goes a long way towards stopping your bonding process with the children. Having a gracious heart is what this comes down to. Recognizing that you're not the only person on the scene, and there are other people that are important to the children, and you work with that. Another thing you can't do is try to change. Last one for step parents: don't try to change your spouse's relationship with their children. I heard a great family therapist say one time. He said, a lot of wicked stepmothers are really just women who are overly eager to fix something going on in their stepchildren's lives or in the relationship they have with the biological parent. And as soon as you make it your agenda to change, you know what? You let your girls run all over you. You need to change how you parent them. You just went to being a menace. And now that bio-parent children relationship, that side of the triangle is against you. Don't go there. Just don't go. But let's talk about biological parents. Some don'ts. Don't be a paralyzed parent. And what I mean by that is your kids had it tough when their mother left, or life's hard. And so you go to feeling sorry for them, and that sorry turns into boundaryless parenting. You never set limits. You don't follow through on consequences. You let them get away with murder. And then you're wondering why your new spouse is complaining about, nobody ever helps clean up their own mess. Well, it's because you're not asking them to clean up the mess. Like when you get paralyzed, it just ramps up the pressure on the step parent to try to deal with the mess going on with the children, and they can't do it. You have to do it. Don't be paralyzed. The antithesis of that is be an active parent, be engaged. And if you need to step up your game, if during the single parent years you kind of drop the ball a little, pick it back up, start running, start being parental, and whatever that means. Because when you do that, it creates a climate where your spouse, the step parent, can bond, can figure out their new relationship with your children. But if they're having to figure out parenting and discipline and bonding, it's way too much. It's way too complicated. It'll unwind itself. So being the parent is important. And the last thing I'll say for bio parents is make sure your kids understand that this is a lifelong marriage, that your commitment is solid to your new spouse. This is not saying I choose my new husband over you, kids. That's not what we're saying. But you are letting them know that you fully intend, till death do you part, to make this marriage a priority. They need to know that, just because they need to know where your heart is. They need to know where you're aligning yourself, what you're committed to. And they also need to know that there's no chink in that armor, that they can't divide and conquer, that they can't turn you against your new spouse and ruin the marriage. If you give them that edge, not all kids, but every once in a while there's one who will go, okay, I see my opening. And now you got more trouble.
Great do's and don'ts. It sounds like from all we've said, this requires the husband and wife, the parents who are building a new family, to really be adults.
Yes.
It sounds like it takes a lot of internal courage and maturity. Yeah. Not all blended families are created with adults who have that already. I know one of your passions is to help blended families make it. We know the statistics that blended families statistically do not last as long, and your passion is to change that. Talk a bit about the process if you are a step parent in a blended family and you're seeing, I haven't done everything quite right, and I'm really feeling the pressure.
My series of books, most of them have the word smart in the title: The Smart Step Family, The Smart Step Mom, Smart Step Dad. You can see some of them behind me. I really think that's a game changer. When you pull back as a couple or as an individual and go, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how we got here. I am just stuck. It's time to start learning some things. And a resource, sitting down with a mentor. Sometimes you got to go to a therapist, but somebody who helps you get perspective on what's going on. Oh, here's the underlying issue going on there. And now what's your response? How do you realign your relationship? You've kind of been going at a opposition with one another as husband and wife. Now, how do we align together so we can deal with children and steps and former spouses that cause all kinds of stress? And so at that point, you learn how to sail a ship. You learn what to do when the wind blows this way instead of that way. And you learn how to manage that rudder, and you learn how to understand the waves and the time of day and all the little factors that make a difference in how you navigate sailing. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. Yes, there also will be in the process some growing up to be done. I don't know about you. I'm 53 years of age, almost 54. I've been married for 34 years. And I feel like God's grown me up even more in the last 6 months in the middle of this pandemic than, ever in my life. You never stop growing up. We all learn something new about ourselves. And here's another piece of me I need to work on. Well, when you recognize one of those things, you know what? I came into this marriage thinking these kids were going to love me, and it was going to fill the mother hole in my heart, but it hasn't. Now what do I do? well, I got to let that die. I got to begin to just go a different route on this thing and see if we can't figure out how to just care for each other in a way that moves us further down. Yeah, that's the growing up that life forces us to do. There's no shame in recognizing that moment and that thing in ourselves and then saying, I got to work on this.
And isn't that how God deals with all of us in every area of our lives? I believe regularly the Holy Spirit brings, it's like he rummages around in your soul and he puts his finger on something in your soul and he says, let's work on this. We need to change this.
Yes.
He keeps doing that. And that's a good thing.
And Dr. Carol, and marriage and family and parenting and step-parenting and former spouses are some of the best tools that God uses to bring us to those moments where we recognize, oh, there's a selfishness in me. It's got to die. I got to deal with. There's a fear in me. You know what? That triggers something in me and I get angry and then I become an ugly person. And I've got to work on that because anger is not going to help me bond with my stepchildren. It's not going to help me gain their trust. It's not going to help our family come together and create a family identity. Right. These are the disciplines that family life gives us. And when we are listening, I got to tell you, God will shape you. He will grow you up. When we're not listening, when we're not willing to even look in the mirror and say, what's going on with me? Then you're just kind of stuck.
I have heard you talk about messed up families and give hope there. We've talked about certainly a big category of that. And for believers in Jesus now, I think it's so helpful to understand we are not the first ones who have experienced messed up families. God's been dealing with this from the beginning, and he doesn't look at messed up families with disdain. Talk for a minute as we approach the close here about how God looks at dysfunctional families, maybe biblically, and give us some hope out of that.
Yeah. I'm convinced we project our own personal shame onto God. We look at ourselves and go, oh, we're such a mess. There's no way God can love me.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, I'm not sure I love myself. I'm not sure I like this situation. I disapprove of me. God must disapprove of me. It's not the way he works. I mean, there is nothing in Scripture, Dr. Carol, nothing that suggests that we have to earn God's grace for salvation, or that we have to earn our rights to be a received person, husband, wife, spouse, child, family. We don't earn any. We work at being godly, and godliness bears fruit.
Yeah.
And that's where God intervenes, and he covers all the rest of the mess, right, through his grace. I think when we accept that, when we rest in that, instead of it being I messed up again, how terrible am I? I'm never enough. It's by God's grace, I'm living and learning, and we're one step at a time. And yeah, I need to apologize for and I'm learning a lesson. I'm going to be different. That's a much different process of change, and sanctification is the big theological word, where God is systematically helping us to become more and more and more like Jesus. When we embrace that, it's there. And here's the cool thing. None of this is tied to family type. It's not tied to first marriages, but not second marriages. It's not tied to biological family units, but not blended family, but not step or single parent families, and not grandparents raising kids. None of that. Fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. How much of that is tied to the kind of relationship you're in? None of it.
That's right.
It applies. It's applicable across family types. We don't have to worry about that. We just have to rest in what God's doing in us.
And God is not a stranger to messed up families. Look at the biblical heroes, even in the Hebrews 11 Hall of Fame. People mentioned there, some of their families were seriously messed up, and God still holds up their faith. He can work in this area of families. I think this area of family and relationships and marriage and so on, I don't know that there's any area of life that makes a bigger difference in our sense of our well-being than that area. And God knows that.
Yep.
And he's well able to work in whatever situation we find ourselves.
That's right. He's sovereign over all of it and working in spite of who we are and through who we are. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God identified himself with that family and that lineage, and he said through your seed, all the nations are going to be blessed. Well, Abraham was a far from perfect husband. He was a far from perfect father. Jacob's family is a complete mess. He has 4 wives. He has a bunch of kids who don't like each other, end up turning on Joseph, the one favored child that was daddy's little favored kid. And it creates this huge family rivalry. It's a big blended family mess, right? Yep. We can go on and on and on, walking through the Bible and families and relationships. And it's not about our perfection. It's about his grace and what he is perfecting in us through his grace.
And thank God for that.
Yes.
And thank God for the work that you have done. Just a word before we finish. If blended families, step families is a challenge for some of our viewers, you have so much resources available. And I just want to give you a minute to invite people to connect with you, helping them do this smarter.
I appreciate that. I used to have people complain to me all the time. We don't have any resources. Where are the books? What's, what, secular or Christian faith-based? Where are they? Well, you know what? We have a lot of them now. I've written 8 books. I'm working on number 9. We have at least 10 other resources, video curriculum resources, books for children. We now do a podcast, the Family Life Blended podcast that's released on a regular basis. Events that I do around the country. We do live stream events that have been recorded from the last 3 years, 6 hours a piece. They're all available online for like $70. You can get access to all. There is all kinds of faith-based, good, solid, research-driven materials that are available today. Just go to familylife.com/blended and just start browsing. And you'll be amazed at the options that you have. Again, audio. So you get, if you're a listener, if you're a reader, if you're a watcher, we get a little bit of all of that for you.
That's awesome, Ron. And we'll make sure our viewers can get a link directly to that. We'll put that up in just a second. Thank you again so much for your ministry and for spending the time with us today. God bless you richly, your family, your work for his kingdom.
I appreciate that. Thank you, and God bless you, Dr. Carol.
If you are blended, I pray that this can help you feel blessed. There is powerful hope and help available if you are struggling. I can personally attest to the fact that you can be blended and blessed. I have experienced such incredible blessing by being a part of my step family. And I am just overwhelmed by the love and grace that I've experienced. I have also learned so much. And I pray that if this is the journey you are on, that you become smart about it. In the show notes for this episode, you'll see links to Ron Deal's latest book, also the Smart Step Families, or just go to familylife.com/blended and find out all the resources there. I also want to mention once again that this was from a video conversation that we had in the Fully Alive group. You can find out more about that online community that we provide at fullyalivegroup.com. Right now, that online community we are combining with our Powerful Breakthrough Prayers online course. And I don't know that I have ever been excited more about a resource that we are bringing to you. Wherever you feel stuck, part of you knows God has the answer, but maybe you are not experiencing it. You prayed and things don't seem to be working and you wonder why. This Powerful Breakthrough Prayers course will show you the steps to take to hear from God and to cooperate with Him in moving forward, regardless of what happens in your outside circumstances. I would love you to come join us. PowerfulBreakthroughPrayers.com is where you can find out about our course. And I would love to have you there. Thank you again for being part of our podcast family. And until next time, may God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol. Our purpose is to provide trustworthy resources that help you and others live fully alive in every way as God intended. If you would like to help others experience transformation in their lives and relationships, we invite you to partner with us. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to the number 512-980-1620. Or visit our website at drcarolministries.com/donate to make a one-time contribution or monthly gift. Your financial support allows us to expand our message and to help others. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.